What's up? Alexander here with Date Psychology. So, today, I'm going to go over a new article, new survey. How attractive are red pill influencers? Collected a sample to rate 11 red pill influencers, podcasters, that sort of a thing. Lots of names you will probably recognize. So, let's just go into this and see what we're looking at here. Describing what I did. So, collected a sample, pretty decent size, 703 participants in the final sample. About half of these were women. So, good balance of male and female ratings. We'll look at some sex differences there. We rated 11 red pill influencers. What I did to select these was basically just look at recent videos, picked them off YouTube, put the videos up so people could watch the video of the influencer. They would rate their vocal attractiveness and their physical attractiveness. We're looking at variables here that might have a halo effect or a horns effect, right? Variables that might produce a bias in ratings. Why might we expect a bias in ratings? Because people know who these influencers are. So they could have positive attitudes toward them or negative attitudes. And what do we know in past research? The halo effect, bidirectional. So if someone is viewed more positively, they're perceived as more attractive. If someone is perceived as more attractive, then they're also viewed more positively as far as their behavioral or personality traits go. So looking at some different variables there that could influence this, kind of that we have to control for these ratings, right? We want to see, if they get a bunch of high or low ratings, whatever the case may be, we do want to know, is that just because people like them or don't like them? So we're looking at attitudes toward feminism, attitudes toward the red pill, right? So are these going to be participants that are more or less feminist? Are they more or less red-pilled? Do they view the red pill negatively or positively? We're looking, similar attitudes toward the black pill. Are they more or less Christian, more or less traditional, more or less left or right wing? And also, how familiar are they with the influencer, right? Because if someone is very familiar with the influencer, we might also, say, okay, well, we know for one that there's an effect of familiarity. The more familiar a face is or a person is, the more attractive they are in general. Conversely, if someone's very familiar with someone who they dislike, that can also indicate, maybe there's going to be a negative correlation with familiarity and attractiveness here. But let's go on into the results and see what emerged. Here are all of the mean ratings, the average ratings of women, right? These are the ratings only that women gave to all of these men. You can pause the video and look at these. Again, this is all up on the article, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time showing you these, but here we have the rank for physical attractiveness, vocal attractiveness, and also ranked by familiarity. So which of these is the most well-known or the most popular? But I'm just going to go on, like I said. Pause it if you want to look at this. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, although I'm sure many of you will be interested in this. Here we have sex differences in ratings. And for each of the 11 red-pilled influencers, I produced a histogram like this that shows the male and the female ratings. Again, these are all on the article, so go to the website, see the article if you want to look at the actual distribution of ratings given to each influencer by men and women. Important because something you'll see in this first histogram, right? These ratings are not normally distributed. And so what does that mean? The average is not the whole story. If someone rates a face or rates a person, if you get ratings for that matter, and I have another article up about this talking about how accurate are, the services that people hire to rate faces and that sort of a thing. If it's just a single number, it could be very misleading, even if it's a single number given by a group. So what do we see here? A mean rating, and this is for Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit, but we see a bunch of women rated him a 1. He's just kind of clustered up at, the ones in that case. The second chart shows attractiveness ratings by sex across all of the ratings. So what do we see here? Women rated these influencers lower than men did. Consistent with past research across the board. Women give lower ratings to pictures of men, videos of men. Women tend to rate men lower in attractiveness than men rate other men. And we see this for each of the 11 influencers. Again, go to the website, check it out if you want to see. Significant sex differences, often medium to large in effect size, where women rate them lower than men do. So, going on to the next slide. How biased are these ratings, right? Because we looked at a bunch of variables. We see that women rate them much lower. Is that because women don't like them? Do they receive low ratings in general? Because, all of these men receive pretty low ratings for both physical and vocal attractiveness. So is that because people just don't like the red pill? Is it because, something about the demographics of the sample? A little bit. We do see something like that, right? We do see that there's a positive correlation between the red pill attitude and ratings. So the more positively people view the red pill, the higher the attractiveness ratings they give. Okay, we see another one, which is politics, which is the more left-wing, the lower the ratings they give. And again, for feminist, right? Feminism actually here, a little bit different, because the lower the feminist ratings, the higher. So perhaps the opposite direction. Feminists in this case they weren't more harsh or more critical. Significant, but actually in the unexpected direction. Still, only 17% of the variance here, well, almost 18%, is explained by all of these variables together. So what does that tell us? That bias in these ratings doesn't explain the low ratings entirely, right? What does that mean? That these are people that are going to get rated relatively low in attractiveness regardless of the bias. But we do see a little bit of bias there. And this can kind of give you an idea of what that is. Familiarity, interestingly, wasn't associated. So we didn't see an effect of familiarity, neither that being more familiar resulted in higher ratings nor in lower ratings. Attitudes toward the black pill, similarly, no. Traditional beliefs, Christian beliefs, again, no. But even, the association with politics is not huge. It's basically the attitude toward the red pill. People that like the red pill more, a little bit nicer with these ratings. People that like the red pill less, a little bit harsher with these ratings. But again, not enough to explain, the entirety of the ratings. Let's go on to the next slide. This can kind of show you some of these variables. What is going on here? So what do we see? The first chart is the correlation between attitudes toward the red pill and physical attractiveness ratings. Spearman's rho of 0.4, so a medium-sized correlation here. And you can see that. And then again, feminism in the unexpected direction. Spearman's rho of 0.2, so a smaller correlation. But this is about what it looks like. This is, has a jitter going on, but that's kind of what you see. If you want to pause this and kind of look and get an idea, okay, this is about what a correlation for a Likert scale, Spearman's rho, 0.4 and 0.2 looks like. Let's go on now to the next slide. Vocal attractiveness, again, you can look at all of the mean ratings for that in the chart at the beginning or on the website, but we see a really high correlation between vocal attractiveness and physical attractiveness. So participants who were rated higher in physical attractiveness also rated higher in vocal attractiveness. Pearson's R here of 0.84, so very large correlation. Yeah. If someone was perceived physically attractive, they were also perceived as vocally attractive, and of course the opposite. If someone was perceived as unattractive, they also tended to be perceived as vocally unattractive. Let's go on now to the next slide. In addition to the Likert items, how positively did someone view the red pill, I also asked, are you red-pilled? So we have three groups here. We have yes, I'm red-pilled, no, and then we have another other, or I don't know what that is. So here we see a similar effect that we see in the attitudes toward the red pill, where men who said they were red-pilled rated these influences a little bit higher, but this is a very, very small difference. So, an eta squared of 0.02, very, very tiny difference. And you can look up these charts here and you can visualize it's a tiny difference. You should just pop out at you, especially if you watch the violin plot video that was the last one that I made. Should be able to see something like this and see, yeah, those look very similar to one another. The difference, if it's significant, which it is, very, very tiny. So does being red-pilled or not being red-pilled influence these attractiveness ratings? If it does, it's only a very, very small amount. I also asked individuals because, like I said, they identified, are you red-pilled, are you not? Or I don't know what that is. Are they more sexually successful? And so this is a count of lifetime sexual partners. How many people has someone had sex with over the lifetime? And what do we see here? I didn't find any difference between yes and no red-pilled group. So men who said they were red-pilled, they didn't have more sexual partners than men who said they were not red-pilled. Men who said, I don't know what red-pilled is or other, they did have more sexual partners on average. Again, small difference here, but a difference. So what can we conclude from this? Two charts here. One is for 80 partners and below, the other is for 20 and below. So you see that this effect persists at normal high levels of partner count, right? Because if you get to above 20 already, you're talking about just a sliver of the population. And then when we include much higher reports as well. Let's go on to the next slide. I also asked individuals to rate their success on dating apps, just a simple Likert scale. How successful are you on dating apps? Do red-pilled men report more success than not red-pilled men, or you could call them blue-pilled men or whatever? Again, we see a similar pattern as we saw in the lifetime sexual partner count data. And what is that? No difference between the red-pilled men and the men who said they were not red-pilled, but a small difference for the other, where they reported slightly higher success on dating apps. So that's what we see. Going on to the next slide. And what can we conclude from all of this, going over this? Red-pilled influencers, they receive pretty low ratings from men and women both. Again, you can see this on the full article on the website, and you can see it in the chart at the beginning, which is just female ratings. Bias in ratings can't account for most of this. It only accounts for about 18% of the variance. But we do see evidence, for bias or the halo effect, right? Where more positive attitudes resulted in higher ratings, or more negative attitudes resulted in lower ratings. And it's important to remember, the halo effect is bidirectional, okay? So what does this mean in real life, a bidirectional halo effect? That if people like you, in real life, outside of an experimental condition, high ecological validity, if people like you, they're going to see you more positively. They're going to think you're more attractive. Similarly, if people think you're more attractive, they might see you a little bit more positively. So your behavior shapes perceptions of attractiveness. The way that you behave, the way that people perceive you, is going to determine how attractive they view you. People who hate you are going to call you ugly, right? People who like you, they're going to be a little bit more forgiving with their ratings. They might call you attractive to your face or tell you that you're beautiful. They might not really think it, but they're much less likely to maliciously call you ugly. Let's go on now to the next slide. Vocal attractiveness, as we saw, highly correlated with physical attractiveness. Why might that be? Well, these were videos, right? These weren't separated and blinded. So we don't see an independent correlation, right? The idea that are more attractive people objectively having more attractive voices. They're presented in conjunction, so we don't know that. We do know, again, from past research, there's also a bidirectional effect of vocal and physical attractiveness. So what does that mean? People who sound more attractive, who have a more attractive voice, they're also rated as more physically attractive, and people who are more physically attractive, they're also rated as having more attractive voices. So again, in the real world, do we need to blind this or separate these two variables? They're never blinded or separated, are they? If someone's talking to you, you see what they look like, you hear their voice, they're always presented in conjunction. So these two things can't just be separated. And it's interesting, from an experimental point of view, to separate them and know, do more handsome people have more attractive voices? But in practice, in the real world, yeah, they kind of do. What else did we see here? Big sex differences in ratings across all of these influencers, with men giving higher ratings to red pill influencers than women did. Consistent, again, with past research. What do we know? Men rate other men higher than women rate men. So, yeah, there you have it. Let's go on now to the next slide. Red-pilled men, what did we learn here? They weren't doing better on dating apps, and they didn't have more sexual partners. So why might that be? Because, the red pill is supposed to be something that explains intersexual dynamics, that, some people say it's, not this or not that, or it's supposed to help men actually have an effective dating strategy, whatever the case may be. This does raise the question, why are red-pilled men not outperforming men who are not red-pilled? So one explanation could be that the red pill simply doesn't do it, right? It's a placebo pill in a sense. The red pill doesn't actually help men perform better. Another explanation, perhaps more charitable, is that the red pill does really help, but that red-pilled men started out in a position worse than blue-pilled men, right? So, they were really struggling. These were men that, for whatever reason, were just doing really bad. Maybe they were low in physical attractiveness. Maybe they just behaved with women in a way that just was not helpful to them. Whatever the case may be, So you have blue-pilled men up here, red-pilled men down here before the red pill. They get red-pilled. Oh, here's where they are. Now they're the same, performing in the dating mating market as blue-pilled men. So that's another explanation. But whatever the case may be, they don't seem to be doing better. Let's go on. Next slide. And this is going to be the last one. Final thoughts here. And I want you to think about the black pill as well. There's some implications for that. The black pill has kind of as its core nucleus of truth here, the belief, or its core ideological belief, whatever we want to call it, that facial attractiveness is way up here as far as determining mating success, success with women, success in the mating market, and all of that. And if it's not just facial attractiveness, it's attractiveness broadly. So, height, whatever the case may be, vocal attractiveness, all of these physical traits that are kind of out of your control. That's the black pill. Attractiveness matters a lot. Everything else doesn't matter very much. So we see in these ratings, red pill influencers generally are not conventionally attractive men. But they all seem to claim to be really, really good with women, if you believe that they are. So, are red-pilled influencers really unattractive men who are very, very good with women? And if they are, how? That should, might call the black pill into question, assuming that you believe the stories of, red pill influencers, when they claim that they're good with women and all of that, and they tell you their war stories. If you believe those things are true, then you kind of have to grapple with, okay, these are men who are, not conventionally attractive, but nonetheless, they're extremely successful with women. Why? How? How does it work? Behavior, personality, right? The red pill essentially works, contrary to the black pill. Or, if you were more black pilled, you might just say, I don't believe their stories. I can see what they look like. I do not think for a minute that these men have an excess of romantic and sexual success. We don't really know, do we? We have no idea the extent to which their stories are true or not true, but that's on the table for you to ponder. Something else we can ask as a final thought here is, are these ratings fair? Because everyone knows who these men are. Some of the people who took this survey obviously have very negative attitudes toward the red pill. Others have very positive attitudes. And again, we see a moderate-sized correlation with attitudes toward the red pill and ratings, even though we don't see a correlation with familiarity and the ratings. So we know that there's some bias there, right? They're not fair ratings. Fair, because what does that mean? In, a laboratory experiment, you can rate faces or videos. You don't know who the person is. So you have no effect of what are they like, right? Is this a great guy, you really like him, or is this a jerk and you hate his guts? Because those things will influence how people actually see you. But remember, ratings in real life are not fair. If you're interacting with other people, they determine how they perceive you based on how you interact with them. If you have a terrible reputation, imagine you're a fairly handsome young man in high school or something, and then one day you crap your pants and everyone makes fun of you, and now you're the kid that craps his pants. And, that's your nickname in high school is Crappy Pants. Do you think that despite being, a conventionally attractive guy, being Crappy Pants is not going to affect your dating and having other people, get the ick or whatever the case may be? It will. So we don't have fair ratings in real life. And so what these videos do, and what rating people that you know has, is called ecological validity. It's an experimental condition that actually probably applies more to real life than just ratings of an unknown face, right? Because we don't rate unknown faces in real life. We see people who we know, we interact with them, and then we judge, are they attractive or not? So people perceive you as less attractive if they perceive you negatively in the real world. People perceive you as more attractive if they perceive you positively in the real world. So if you've done something so negative, if you've given the impression of yourself as an undesirable person and then a bunch of people rate you as unattractive, they're not wrong. You are unattractive, because what is attractiveness? And I talk about this in another article I have up. Attractiveness is just the ratings people give you. Attractiveness is not a feature that exists independently of those ratings. And that's not to say that it's entirely subjective or that there's no objective component. Because, we perceive the physical features of other people, which are objective, real things in the material world, as attractive or not. But those perceptions exist within the minds of the perceivers. So what is attractiveness? It's always the perceptions that other people have of you. It's the ratings that other people have of you. And precisely, attractiveness is, kind of the collective rating that other people give you. That's what attractiveness is. It's a rating that people give you that resides in the mind of those raters. And you're only as attractive as other people say that you are. So no one can really be wrong about their attractiveness ratings. On an individual level, people can disagree, right? And we see that in the distribution of ratings. You can have, 200 women that rate someone a 1, and then 3 women that rate them a 7. So there can be disagreement there between individuals. But on average, we tend to see correlations there. We tend to see agreement. And in both cases, it doesn't change that attractiveness is how others perceive you. So there's no wrongness there in the sense, which is something to consider, that given that your behavior shapes how people see you, if you go through life behaving in a way that is unattractive and repellent, other people are going to like you less. They're going to say, they look kind of ugly to me now. And I mean, I think many women will give you that account, and I think that's a lot of what the ick is, right? A lot of discussion on the ick. What is the ick? There hasn't been very much research into it. I've tried to ask women about the ick in one survey. We're kind of looking into this a little bit more now. What is the ick? It's a behavior, often something trivial, but not always, that a man can do that can immediately just squash their attractiveness, right? A woman is interested in you. She's on a date with you. She likes you. And then you do something. And then all of a sudden, ooh, ick. Now she feels ick about you, right? Whatever attractiveness she felt towards you, boom, it's gone now. So behavior can abruptly shift perceptions of attractiveness. Keep that in mind with your own behavior, on a day-to-day basis, out in the world, how you're interacting with other people. That, your attractiveness is really not just your face. Your attractiveness is also how you behave and how your behavior shapes the way other people perceive your face. Anyway, hope you liked the video. Yeah, way more information on this up on the website. So yeah, check the article out. Check out all the links in the description of this video. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. We have a Discord where we kind of design these surveys. We throw ideas around. We talk about the research and everything. So yeah, think about joining the Patreon, joining the Discord, and I will make another video for you guys very soon.